just want to say thanks to everyone that's joined us today. The numbers are ticking up very nicely on the right hand side, so it's great. So it's great to see that so many people are interested in what we have to say. So we've been thinking about doing this webinar for quite some time, but we wanted to make sure that we did it at the right time. We didn't want to go too early, but as a company, Strictly Recruitment, we're now in the mindset of starting to think about the return to work. It might be a couple of weeks, it might be a little bit longer, but we wanted to make sure that our community and our candidates and us as a business are at the forefront for when we return, and we want to make sure that our candidates are fully informed as possible. Now, I know that it's been quite a worrying time with everything that's been going on in the world, and there's been a lot of questions back and forth, and one of the big questions is about recruitment and about the landscape of recruitment moving forward with this. So this is why we've kind of put this together to kind of give you guys the opportunity to ask some questions to us, so we can essentially help you in your job search moving forward, basically. We've had loads of questions come through via email, so thanks so much to everybody that submitted questions. Once we get the kind of issues with the group chat sorted, I'm sure there'll be a chance to throw some out at the end. So just a little bit about me and Hannah. I'm one of the directors, COO of Strictly Recruitment. And for those of you that don't know much about Strictly Recruitment, we're a large business support agency in central London, covering a whole magnitude of different vacancies, from PA, secretarial, to HR, paralegal, marketing, finance, and what have you. So quite a broad spectrum. This year we're celebrating our 10th birthday, and we did have lots of special things planned, but they've been put on the back burner for the moment for obvious reasons, which is a bit unfortunate, but I'm sure that we'll put something in place a little bit further in the year. So as I say, I'm COO, and what I've done is I've invited one of our senior consultants, Hannah Moore, onto the call with us. Hannah's a highly experienced recruiter herself, with 6 or 7 years experience within the industry. She trained at one of the large high street agencies, so comes from impeccable training, and she's kind of used that training and adapted it for our kind of style, which is a little bit more niche and a little bit more laid back style of recruitment. So Hannah, if there's anything else that you want to add about your experience to everyone before we start answering some questions.
Yeah, of course. So I think there's quite a few people from what I've seen on here that we know already, that will know myself. So I've been running the temporary division at Strictly Recruitment since I started, but still very much involved in the permanent side as well. So actually a lot of the questions that have come through that we're going to be going through today do have a lot of relevance to what goes on in the temporary world as well. And I think now more than ever, we will hopefully see a big kind of surge of temporary roles coming through. If there are companies out there that can't necessarily commit to recruiting people on a permanent basis straight away, then we're hoping to see a big influx of temporary requests instead. So for all of my lovely temp candidates, or for anyone new that I don't know that is going to be looking for temp work, obviously make sure that you're pinging your CV through to us after this if we don't already have it, just that we can book you in and do a brief registration before everything does start moving again.
Good stuff. Okay, thanks, Hannah. So, so look, just so everybody knows the kind of brief format for this session. We're not going to take up too much of everybody's time, because we know that these things can get a little bit painful. So we don't want people to be bored. Okay, first things first. So we're going to rattle through some of the questions. We're going to try and keep it for half an hour, 35 minutes. Given the kind of raft of questions, we might have to kind of do a bit of a series of these, which could be quite good, because other people might go away and start thinking, oh, I wish I'd asked that question. So, but we'll see how today goes. So one of the first questions that we've had come in, and I'll throw you in the lion's den, Hannah, how about that? So the first question is, I'm keeping these anonymous, by the way, so I'm not giving anyone's name who asked the questions, so for GDPR reasons. Do we continue to apply for roles advertised on job boards or should we wait until a firm date as to when the isolation curfew has been lifted? What are your thoughts on that, Hannah?
Definitely don't wait for a day, purely because we don't know when that's going to be, and there are still some companies out there recruiting, definitely. I think applying to roles advertised online, absolutely, that's the first thing that you should be doing. You know, in a time like this, you need to be pushing yourself and getting yourself out there, absolutely. One thing definitely to keep in mind, and this is just me being honest as a recruiter, and I know Paul will back me up with this, a lot of the roles that you will see advertised online, a lot of the time they're not actually real roles. You know, as a recruitment agency, you still want to be generating candidates and talking to people. So you will see the odd roles online that aren't actually real jobs that people are advertising. So of course, be wary of that. You might think, oh, well, I'm not getting any calls back on any of the roles that I've applied to. And a lot of the time they're not actually real roles. But yeah, you need to put yourself out there. You need to be applying to everything possible, just so that, you know, all of the agencies do know who you are, or companies know who you are when things do start moving again.
Yeah, I would agree exactly with what Hannah has said just there. I think that now is the time. What I've seen is, during this period over the last few weeks, what I've seen is a lot of people have kind of disappeared, and from the perspective of looking for a job, I think that's the complete opposite thing that you should be doing. 100% you should be getting in touch with the recruitment agencies. Definitely be getting in touch with companies directly. Hannah makes a very good point that when I first started in recruitment, it was a massive thing advertising fake jobs, unfortunately, and sadly that still does happen today. Luckily, at Strictly, we've been in a position where we've always been very job heavy, so we haven't actually needed to do that. But a kind of prime example is that I interviewed a recruitment consultant that got in contact with us that wanted to work for us at Strictly about 3 or 4 months ago. And the agency that he worked for a rec to rec, which is a recruitment to recruitment agency. But every single advert that he used to post was basically advertising for jobs in the financial sector. So he would go out and advertise jobs to advertising traders to get the interest for those individuals not working in that sector whatsoever. And then it was their job to persuade them to become recruitment consultants. So those tactics do still happen. So it's something to be very wary of. I think at a time like this where jobs are at a premium, it's just to be kind of prudent to make sure that the things that you are applying for do exactly exist and what have you, and look for agencies that are actually returning your calls and getting back to you, because they're the ones that will be in the best place possible to kind of push forward when we come through the other side. And interestingly, whilst we talk about this point, me and the team have been discussing over the last couple of days that we want to make sure that we're as active as possible on the candidate front from here on in. And as of next week, we are opening up designated interview slots for all candidates to come and register with us on a daily basis. So every single day at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, people will be able to book themselves in for video calls or telephone calls to get themselves registered. So they're at the front of the queue for when the jobs return, fingers crossed, pretty soon, to be fair. So the next one is, again, throw it out to you, Hannah. I'm an unemployed legal secretary. My first question during this pandemic is, do you have any temporary positions working from home? And the second question is, I would like to become a legal DP operator. I have basic skills in Word, PowerPoint and Excel. Could you advise what is the best course of action to take pursuing this?
Okay. First question in regards to any jobs working from home, unfortunately not. Pretty much everything is on freeze at the moment. But like Paul said, over the next couple of weeks, we are hoping that it's going to change and things are going to be moving again. In regards to becoming a document production operator, we see lots of legal secretaries transition into this. I note that you say in your question that you've got basic skills in Word, Excel and PowerPoint. to be a document production operator, you're going to need really, really strong skills. So I'd recommend, you can do online Excel courses, PowerPoint courses, Word, typing and so on. You're going to need to get a typing speed minimum of 65 words per minute for a document production role. Every DP role that you interview for, it is more than likely you're going to be tested in interview, again on Word, PowerPoint, Excel, things like that. So making sure that you've got your skills really, really strong before you go and interview is essential. Otherwise, you'll be wasting your own time, if anything. But no, doing that transition from a legal PA to a document production operator, it happens a lot. It's a route we speak to so many people about going down. It's something that they decide that eventually they actually want to move away from, I suppose, more of the client side and business development side of a PA role and stick to the typing side. But no, I would definitely encourage it. I think there's lots and lots of DP roles usually out there as well, and it's actually an industry that sometimes we find it a bit trickier to fill roles purely because of the expectation of how high your skills need to be now. So going out there and refreshing those skills it'll be brilliant. It'll be a really good career path to go down.
Mm-hmm. I think it's worth noting actually, which is a kind of combined answer to both of the questions. Just before we were informed that we had to work from home and not shut the office down, but go into isolation, we were working on a bunch of jobs which were countrywide home working positions for DP WP operators for one of our law firms. Sadly, that got put on hold for now, and I think the reason why things are being put on hold for people working from home is the difficulties basically getting the onboarding process sorted at this moment in time, because the first thing you do have to go to the office initially to kind of get yourself all set up and what have you. I think the whole working from home question is a very difficult one to answer in this landscape. If you look at it, naturally you would sit there and say, hey, now is the perfect time that the landscape's going to completely change and everybody's going to be working from home moving forward because of what's happened over the last few weeks. But what I have seen is the productivity levels have been dropping quite significantly from a lot of people that I've been looking into. So companies might essentially go the other way, but I think we don't actually know until the kind of dust has settled and moving forward. But we have seen an increase in positions that working from home in the lead up to this. A couple of courses to look at, if you haven't already done it, is the IELTS courses. They're the kind of go-to courses to get yourself enrolled with for the PA secretarial skills. So Hannah, do you want to turn be a question master?
Yes. Okay, I've got this one, but this one may be better for me to definitely answer anyway, because I think it's quite relevant to the temp side of things. But it says, I am a contractor via a limited company. I have had gaps in between jobs, not at my own willingness, but just how the market moves. How do I explain to interviewers and recruiters about this gap so they don't look at it negatively? Also, how can I best structure my CV to reflect this, a job as short as 3 months? This is a really tough one. I mean, look, I don't know who's asked this question or what their background is. I think if you're a limited worker, a lot of the time you're falling more into the financial services or technology industry, because you're providing a service where you just need to go in there and work for a few months, which naturally explains why your CV is quite jumpy, which I think recruiters in that industry understand. When it comes to the industry that we recruit for, so mainly office support into professional services, it's not as often that you find someone that's a limited worker. If we do have a CV and it's extremely jumpy and they've just been temping, it always depends on what your background story is. We've got some people that have done this that have just preferred to be temps for their whole career. Some people haven't actually wanted to initially do it, but just fallen into it. Some companies can be I wouldn't say fussy, but they can be a bit funny sometimes if they see a jumpy CV, purely because it kind of rings alarm bells, and they think, oh well, why hasn't this person been able to secure a permanent job somewhere? You know, why have they gone in as a temp to all these places and not been offered something more longer term? So that's something that flags up to them. So I think it's important that when you are writing your CV, that you are putting next to each job why you left it, the reason it was just a fixed term contract or you moved on to the next role. In terms of structuring the CV, I've had candidates that have been in a permanent job for, let's say, 8 years, but then 3 years since then they've been in just temporary roles. And what I usually do is have all of their permanent roles listed, and then January 2017 to January 2020 we'll have temporary roles, and then a list of the places they've temped at and what the roles were, but without going into too much detail. And the only reason I do that is it makes it appear less jumpy. I think if you have every single role listed with all of the job duties underneath it, your page, you know, your CV is going to be about 10 pages long. And that's when it kind of stands out to people that, okay, this CV is a bit too jumpy, we're not going to look at this person because they've not got as much longevity in their CV, and so on.
Good stuff. Should I go with the next question then, Hannah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the question is, I come from a receptionist background, and I would like my next role to be more of by the looks of it, a step up into kind of team assistant, secretarial. As I have some downtime at the moment, the question is, which online resource course would you suggest to use to update my skills? I think it's a really relevant question at the moment, because when you go online, you can't move for skill sessions and webinars and training courses and what have you. So this is an ideal time to upskill, and this is an ideal time to learn as much as possible whilst there is a bit of downtime in the business world. There's some really reputable organisations like Pitman's, Quest Personnel, ILEX for the legal industry, but there is also lots of independent trainers as well. People like Paul Pennant, who is a big partner of ours. He does some amazing online secretarial skills and tips, and he normally does them live, but he's doing them all online now. Lucy Brazier from Exec PA, she runs. She's got lots of online courses that can also be used. There is an organisation that we've been in contact with, who are called Quest Professional as well, who are good secretarial agency. And I think ultimately, when you're looking for a job, it's that catch-22 of making sure that you can get yourself in at the right level and the skills are transferable across. We hear a lot of people saying, we hear a lot of people saying, oh, I want to make the jump from X to Y and Y to Z and what have you. It can be a tricky thing, because a lot of times, and especially in very, very busy markets, that the companies do always go for the experience wise and what have you as much as possible. So a kind of good footnote to that is, in your current position, whilst you're looking for that transition, try and see if you can get some exposure and some experience in doing those other things that you're looking to do, so you can then put that on your CV as solid work experience, so you can refer back to that when you're looking for that next role, basically. Thanks to Audrey for coming through. Staff Academy through PA Life, Assistant Essentials with Practically Perfect PA. Nikki Christmas is amazing. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I've been in contact with Nikki a lot over the years, and I know that they're doing a big summit in a couple of weeks' time, which they've actually asked us to host a part on there as a recruitment section. So Nikki is a great tried and tested trainer. So I would definitely agree with that. Hannah, have you got another question before we kind of throw out a few bits and pieces to everybody else?
Yeah. There's one here. Should I include a photo and personal profile on my CV? Photo, I would say no, doesn't make any difference at all. Personal profile on your CV, absolutely. It's one of the most important parts on your CV, I personally think. That's your opportunity there to kind of, summarise your skill set and sell yourself in, I suppose. So yeah, definitely having a profile. Make it relevant though. I'd say we do see some CVs that come through that have profiles that are like 5 paragraphs at the top of the CV, which when you're searching through hundreds of applicants, you're not going to sit there and read 5 paragraphs, as I know most internal recruitment teams wouldn't be doing either. So just having, I'd say, 4 or 5 sentences covering your key skills, what it is that you're looking for, what you've been doing most recently, would be absolutely fine.
I agree. I think just one last point on that for my 2 pence for what it's worth. I know that one of the big bugbears from hiring managers, direct hiring managers, because we ran a similar thing like this live event back in February, and this came up, and all of the hiring managers said they get really frustrated that when they see CVs that aren't specific to that job that they're applying for. For example, CVs won't get changed for each particular job. So people will say, I'm an experienced banking secretary looking for a job in a small organisation, but they've applied to HSBC or Morgan Stanley. And if there's bits and pieces that like that in your first sentence, automatically 9 times out of 10 that person's going to be a no, and the rest of the CV isn't going to be read. So make sure that point is as relevant as it possibly can be to the job that you're actually applying for, and making sure it's specific for that job and ticks those boxes, and try and keep away from the real generic intro that we see. I'm a lively, bubbly person that is really dynamic, can work well in a team, but is very happy to work on my own. Make it a little bit more punchy and make it relevant to that particular job that you're applying for, to make sure it doesn't get disregarded with everybody else.
Yeah, I think off the back of that as well, it within your profile part, if you are immediately available, state that in your profile so that it is one of the first things a recruiter or an internal recruiter does see. Running a temporary desk myself, I know that if we do get a temp roll through and we've not got any relevant candidates in our current database and we need to go to the job boards, when we're looking through CVs, a lot of people will still have to date in their current role, even though actually a month ago they left that position. Now, if it says today, it's more than likely we're not going to call you, because we're going to assume you're in a permanent role and you're not going to be interested in any temporary work. So making sure that the dates are correct on your CV, and that the first thing it does state in your profile is, I am an immediately available PA, secretary, whatever it is that you do.
Hannah, we've had quite a lot of questions around jumpy CVs, and people saying my CV could be deemed as jumpy. I don't hear back from people and what have you. I just wanted to ask what your opinion was on that, and after you've given your opinion, if you remember, this came up in the live conference that we did. So I'll talk about what the hiring managers say, but from a recruiter, what are your thoughts on jumpy CVs, should we say?
I mean, it goes back to what I was saying when we had the question about the limited worker. It's where I run a temp desk. To me, it doesn't matter. If you've got a jumpy CV, you're still relevant for temporary roles that we have. The struggle comes when you're then applying for permanent roles, I think, because a lot of recruiters or internal recruiters, like I said earlier, it's a red flag. They start to question straight away why you've been in so many different companies and you've not been offered something longer term. Now, if it's just due to your lifestyle, I mean, I've met so many candidates who are actresses on the side, so they only like to do bits of temp work in between those jobs, or they actually run their own business separately, so they only like to do temp work. As long as you're stressing the reason as to why you have had quite a jumpy CV and you've got a good reason behind it, then you should be absolutely fine. But again, it's about stating that clearly on the top of your CV, and as Paul will let you know, we did have this question come up with a big panel of law firm recruitment specialists who did give some really interesting feedback on this.
They did. Their feedback was interesting, actually. Their feedback was really, really interesting in the sense that they all said they were all very political with their answers. Okay, so they all said that they actually really quite like people who had diverse and dynamic experience. Now, from a recruiter perspective, and a recruitment agency, I don't want to go against what they say, but let's just be honest about it. There are times, and there have been times, where our clients have declined people's CVs by saying the CV is too jumpy, because the people that they're going to be reporting to would want a little bit more longevity. But that said, the hiring managers all said to us, it shows a diverse range of experience. It shows that they can cope with change, new environments, and new experiences. What they all said is, as long as you own your experience and you're proud of your experience and you can justify exactly the reasons why you've been doing these things and the reasons why it might be a 3-month stint or a 6-month stint or a year stint, then embrace it, own it, and be proud of it, basically, was the key message that they said to us. So it is a really tricky one, because it's one of those things that does become a bit of a catch-22, because we do get people decline for it, but you've got to go with the hiring managers' direct comments and go with what they say. So hopefully that clears that up a little bit. We've had another question come through whilst we're actually here, and it talks about achievements on CVs, receiving Employee of the Month. If yes, could you give some examples of kind of different experiences and what have you? Any thoughts on that, Hannah? Sorry,
do you mean should it be on your CV?
Yeah, so the question is, should I list my achievements on my CV, for example, receiving Employee of the Month award?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no harm in doing that at all. I think definitely. A lot of the time it can show your character. If you've ever been promoted in a role, that definitely needs to be on your CV. Definitely, if it's things in regards to any courses you've done, any qualifications you've gained, 100% that needs to be on your CV. The reason that needs to be on there is a lot of the time as a recruiter, if we're given a role by a company and they're specifically looking for somebody that's got their Silex qualification and they've used a certain system, when we go to search for our CVs on the job boards, we will type in those 2 words, so Silex and whatever the system is that they want you to have used. If that isn't listed on your CV is not going to come up in that search, meaning you're then more than likely not going to be called about the role. So it is essential to get everything listed on your CV, any achievement, any system, any qualification, anything like that, get it on there, and you'll definitely increase your chances of being called about roles.
Definitely, I would agree, and I think the only thing that I'm going to add to that is from a wider CV perspective, it's so important. It's so important to tailor your CV for each individual job that you go for, and it kind of goes back to what I said before about the point of making sure the opening paragraph is relevant to that job. I would make sure that the whole CV is relevant to that job. And again, we get asked from people a lot, should my CV be 2 pages? I've been told that that's the bog standard. But hiring managers want to see as much experience as possible on the CV. And I think that moving forward from this, there's going to be a huge influx of candidates in the market. So the hiring managers are going to sit there essentially with a job spec, with people's CVs, and they're going to want to see that if the job spec is quoting that they've done ABC, they're going to want to see it on each CV. I think the important thing to remember is to tailor the job spec for as much as you possibly can for each individual vacancy that you're going for. Hopefully that helps. So we've I mean, we've still had lots of questions come through, which I'm keen to answer. But at the same time, it'd be good to kind of jump on some of the bits and pieces that we've had come through. Could you let us know how you register for your initial interviews next week, 2 and 10? Yes, of course. So we're basically sorting that out at the moment. We're going to advertise the dynamics around that this week. So essentially every single day at 10 o'clock and at 2 o'clock, people can book in a 15-minute slot with one of the consultants to have a chat about what they want to be doing moving forward. We will then take their details, keep them on file for when the jobs come in, and away we go, basically. I think the easiest way that we're going to do it is we're going to ask people to send in their CV first, so we know who we're talking to, and then we book a time from there, basically. But that will be advertised to everyone this week. How can you give an example of how to word a CV, a jumpy CV, in an interview? What do you think, Hannah?
Again, as what Paul said earlier, it's, you know, owning it, being proud of it, and giving that reason if there is a reason. So if you do have something that you do behind the scenes that is the reason that you just do temporary work on the side, stressing that. I think some people are sometimes a bit scared to talk about any other projects they do on the side because they may think that it shows they're not fully committed to the role that they're going for, but I don't think that is the case at all. Obviously if it's something that takes up your Monday to Friday, then yeah, that's going to scare them off a bit. But yeah, just, you know, just being honest, that's the key thing. And they are probably going to grill you and say, well, why did you leave this one, why did you leave this one? As long as you have reasons behind it, and it's just not being a case of that you've decided to leave every role that you've been in because, you know, you're really fussy, then you shouldn't have any problems.
Good stuff. A really great question that's come in here, which says, how many years of experience would you say is it needed to be considered a high level PA or a traveling PA? I mean, I would say that's a catch-22. I would say that's a catch-22 question, because we have seen the term high level PA is going to be based on the person that you're going to be reporting into. And I think the simple answer to that question is that it will be down to that individual's preference. We're not allowed to talk about age, okay, because it's a big no-no in recruitment. However, our clients say to us they would prefer someone of XYZ experience or ABC experience. So it would depend on the individual that person we're going to be working for. Now, we have seen junior secretaries and PAs go through their training, impress in that. One of the most senior people in their businesses really look at what they're doing and then say, I see the value in this person, let's bring this person, and then they're all of a sudden a high-level PA. On the flip side of it, I have seen throughout my career people that I've met at junior level, then placed them in job after job after job, and then over a 15-year period, they've risen to that very top level. So I think it's a really tricky one to answer, but if that is your desire to become a top level high PA, you need to be displaying exemplary PA skills. You need to be thinking 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. You need to be completely transparent in what you're doing. You need to be going the extra mile. You need to be doing all of those things that a top level PA does, regardless of the level of years of experience and age or background that you have. It's about showing that you can thrive in that environment. And someone who thrives in that environment is going to be the person that is open to a conversation at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. It's going to be the person that just cracks on and organises a whole schedule without being instructed to do so, essentially. Would you add anything to that, Hannah?
No, absolutely. I mean, I'd say definitely the most successful people that we see are those that have a real strong backbone as well. I think naturally, the more senior you become as a PA, I think not in all cases, but the trickier the people that you support are. That seems to be like a natural trend, that the more you're paid is because that person isn't always the easiest to support. But yeah, I think it's a tough one, because like Paul said, you know, we can meet people with 2 years experience who are supporting head of departments on huge salaries, but it has, you know, really been based around their attitude and how they've approached things and how they've dealt with things. And like Paul said, it is absolutely those people that are getting those calls at 5 a.m. to reschedule a flight somewhere that are happy to do that. They're the people that seem to go far quite quickly.
Good stuff. And we've had one last thing that's come through privately to here, that's kind of that's off the group chat, which is asking about video introductions. And this is something that came up. This is something that came up in our live conversation that we had. It's something that anyone that knows me well personally as a recruiter, is something that I'm a huge fan of, which is video introductions on a CV. I think that as we move into 2020 and we move into the digital age, especially if people's experience is a little bit looser compared to the job spec, or CVs a little bit more jumpy compared to the job spec, including a video introduction on a CV is a huge selling point for any candidate, because it gives people the opportunity to present themselves, and it gives people the opportunity to really put themselves out there and display the soft skills that everybody will be looking for in a job. The difficult thing that people have with CVs is that it's impossible to see what somebody's like as an individual based on 2, 3, 4 pieces of paper. By having a short video introduction at the beginning of the CV, it gives an insight to what that person is actually like, and it gives them an opportunity to show what they're like as a person and how they're going to present themselves to clients and what have you. So hopefully we've given you some really good information there. My emails is really pinging behind the scenes, so it looks like there's lots more questions coming through. So what I think that we should do, I think that we should advertise this further, and if we get some more questions, my thoughts are we can do it again at the same time next week. Would you be up for that, Hannah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then it gives people an opportunity to kind of think about some more questions that they might want to ask. Hopefully, we've given you guys some honest thoughts, some honest opinions without, we've just kind of cutting straight to it. That was the purpose of it. Hopefully, everybody has found it worthwhile. And thanks for your time for listening.
Thank you.
Anything to add before we sign off, Hannah?
Obviously just get your CVs through to us. If we don't already have your CV, send it over to hello@strictly-recruitment.com, and then that will be sent to myself or Paul or David. Some of you may have been trying to contact the other guys that work at Strictly who are on furlough at the moment. So if you've not been getting a response, just email any of us. And we'll be able to help you. But yeah, like Paul said, hopefully within the next few weeks, things do start moving again. And if you do have any questions, make sure you get them through, because we'll make this a weekly thing, just to give you all the information that you need so that you're, in the best position possible for when roles do start coming on again.
Good stuff.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.